What's going on, dudes and dudettes? So that guy on X, Founders Edit or Founders Inc. was redoing like a more horizontal version of that one of like all the USC fans of that community or who are following him on that account, and he pretty much put me on there again too, which is pretty cool. I won't tell you where I am, so you can check out the picture for yourself right there, see if you can find me. I am not in the same spot, but yeah, pretty cool that I made both edits. And then USC basketball did make some moves in the transfer portal the past couple of days. They did get that guard, I believe it was from USD. It's down there in San Diego. Same as Bryce Pope, really good shooter, averaged like 16 plus, almost 18 points down there. So yeah, he is a very talented offensive player. Then they had a Yale forward recently go the other day, commit and transfer. His name is Matt Knowling. So yeah, hopefully he's a pretty good player. Obviously he's a very smart player. The USC women's team did get Mackenzie Forbes from one of those. They actually got 3 players from one of those like private Yale and Harvard and all those Columbia type of schools. There's a word for it. I'm blanking on it right now. Ivy League schools, yes. So maybe this way will help out the USC men's side. But yeah, I didn't realize how many guys had already left or just aren't with the program anymore, because it looked like even when they added Pope the other day, there was maybe like 5 or 6 total guys, and there's a handful of guys that are on the roster that were on for the previous staff, so who knows if they're going to end up staying on officially too. So yeah, Eric Musselman, the new head coach, does have a lot of work to do, but he is getting some very talented guys. I don't know exactly like the classes all these guys are, of how many years they have left, but either way, they should be able to at least stick around for a year or two to help him out to be able to get some more high school guys to be able to stay in longer than a year or two. And I believe he's a tight end in the 2025 class, Brock Harris. I think we recently talked about him getting an offer and multiple offers from other schools, but yes, USC did offer him, and I think he was actually there today. I'm recording this Saturday at that USC spring game, and he did put out a post the other day saying where should he go or where is home, something like that. So of course, whenever those incoming players do that, I always do the hashtag fight on and a couple of the fight on symbols just to see if it gets any interaction. And of course, he ended up liking it, which is always pretty cool. So obviously he's looking at the comments, and I know he was very high on USC. That's what I talked about when he talked about going in to visit them already. So yeah, hoping they do end up getting a guy that's that interested in them in the near future, especially at a nice position too at tight end. And then there is a recent Caleb Williams talk where there was, I think he pretty much said himself that he wants to be the one to chase down Tom Brady's legacy, obviously to try to get to GOAT status. I'm pretty sure like a lot of the main guys that have recently come in, even though they've been projected to be some of the more talented guys, they haven't really kind of put themselves out there to be as prolific as Tom Brady was, going to, what was it, 6 or 7? He definitely went to way more Super Bowls than he won, because he definitely lost in a couple of them. But yeah, to be able to even have that type of legacy, and obviously winning as much as he did too, so be able to call yourself the GOAT, it's definitely some high, lofty expectations, but that's what we're used to. When he was at USC, he wanted to win right away that first year, and they almost did get into the Final Four too. So, and they're definitely setting up a nice team out there in Chicago for him, obviously taking one of the Chargers' best receiver, probably the best receiver in Keenan Allen in their history. So yeah, we'll see how that ends up going for them. And I think an executive in the NFL also said that he's built a lot more different, Caleb Williams that is, to Bryce Young, who was the more recent #1 pick from Alabama, who went to the Carolina Panthers and obviously struggled in his first year, even got his head coach that picked him pretty much fired too, and has to go with the new guy. I think Dave Canales, who was with Tampa Bay, is there now as the head coach, so maybe it could work out. Obviously, Bryce Young is very talented. I've known about him for ever since he was a freshman at Modern Day. Obviously, everyone assumes because he did commit to USC, but ended up changing his mind late in the process and going to Alabama, so that did hurt quite a bit. Still had no ill will towards him. He did play very well at Alabama, but you just always wondered and worried about his size, because maybe they're the same height. I think Caleb Williams is probably an inch or two taller, which isn't really saying much when you're comparing him to a Bryce Young, but he is obviously a lot thicker and has a bit more weight on him. He doesn't have to add on a weight just to please some teams during the draft process, as did Bryce Young. I think it was like, as long as he's over 200 pounds, then they were just happy. I think he was just like right above that too. But either way, if they're talented enough, it doesn't matter the size apparently. But the NFL is a tough beast, so you never know. And we recently talked about him, Carmani McClain, one of those top 5-star players in last year's class who is already in the transfer portal from Colorado and has a pretty questionable background and all that stuff when it comes to selecting schools and all that process, but I guess that's why he's already in the transfer portal. But he said he did hear from like 11 teams already, and USC was one of them, so I wasn't surprised about that because I heard that they were thinking about it, so I guess they did reach out to him. I don't know if they set up a visit or not, but we'll see how that ends up going. After watching the spring game in live action as we did earlier on today, I kind of don't think they need any more corner help. Maybe some linebackers and maybe some offensive players, but other than that, those corners definitely stepped up, even the freshman Marcellus Williams, but I will get to that a little bit later in the video. And then one of the ex-great USC wide receivers who was right before my time, right before I became a real true fan of USC football. Obviously they call him Big Mike Williams. He was basically a really athletic, big wide receiver. I guess that's why he tried to play, or they tried to make him play tight end just because of how big he was. Once he got into the NFL, he was selected very high in the draft, but I guess it just never really worked out. But when it came to, when people talk about some of the greater wide receivers in USC history, his name always comes up, so I definitely have to go back and check out all the highlights and stuff. I think I've seen a couple here and there, but yeah, he was definitely considered one of the more dominant guys, and it looks like he will be one of USC's new director of player personnel. I want to get that correct. Player development, excuse me. So I don't know exactly what that is. I don't know if he's going to be in the coaching staff, some type of leadership role like that, or being able to help them out on and off the field. I don't know, but yeah, we'll see where this goes. But yeah, definitely always exciting to bring back some of the ex-great USC players to become part of the staff or faculty or anything like that. There was a top 2026 4-star safety in Jiri Edwards. He put USC recently in his top 10, which is nice because he definitely is looking like one of the harder hitters and one of the better players in that 2026 class, and he was only a sophomore this last year in high school, so a lot of top schools after him. Luckily, USC already made that top 10. You never know because it's always 2 years out. These guys can always change their mind, but at least he's taking his time. It's a top 10 now. Hopefully, he'll get knocked half that after his third year in high school, so we will see. And there was a really good Oregon State, I want to say guard player on the women's side. Her name is Talia von Oilhofen. No, I'm not getting that correct, but I believe she put USC in her Final Four because she put out a pretty big time release, and it only had 4 teams on there. Obviously, some of the better programs out there as well, but luckily USC was on that list, and even Juju Watkins, I saw on social media, was hyping her up and retweeting or liking a lot of the stuff and telling her to come play with her too. So maybe that'll be enough to get her to commit or transfer, hopefully recently. But yeah, just to add a little bit more depth and experience onto that team should definitely help out the USC women's side to get even farther than they did, which was pretty far in my opinion already. So yeah, definitely looking forward to year 2 of Juju Watkins. And then speaking of that USC spring game, yes, went to it earlier on today, Saturday. It's kind of weird. It was overcast, but of course I still got sunburned, as you can still see, which is pretty crazy. But obviously wasn't paying attention and putting sunscreen on. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Kind of just go to check out the team, look at the young guys, see how they do. Hopefully nobody gets hurt, which is what it looked like. Nobody got hurt or dinged up. And then they also do like a surplus thing where there's a lot of items, especially clothing-wise, that aren't sold throughout the year or the past couple years, and they have extras, or they try to do giveaways during some of those games to have more people come in and they just have an extra surplus of that. So we kind of go for that too, and got like a couple of nice items right there for like, you know, 40, 50 bucks, but a lot of good high price items that probably would have cost definitely more than a couple $100, especially just from USC, and it's from the main campus too. That was pretty cool. And I think there was like a poster as well. I always give out like some things. So last year's was more vertical, but this is a new one. That was pretty cool to see. But yeah, overall it was pretty nice. I think the offense ended up losing 28-43, which is okay, I guess. At least we saw some development from the new defensive coaching staff and a lot of the new defensive players, which is always good to see. But yeah, as of right now, Lincoln Riley did say that Miller Moss is leading the quarterback battle, but it kind of looked pretty bad. He did throw a couple interceptions. I mean, both him and Jaden Mayaba did throw a couple interceptions too. So maybe it's just how good the USC defense is, but they just definitely got to get better once they play a really good team in LSU in Vegas next couple of months. And you know, who knows, it might be a 2-quarterback system, maybe to confuse the other teams so they don't know who to really practice for. But either way, definitely looking forward to that. And obviously did run into one of the biggest players, or biggest well-known people on the women's side, Juju Watkins, as we were leaving too. She was heading out as well. We left a little bit early and ended up getting a nice pic with her real quick, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, other than that, enjoyed it. Second time in a row going. We'll most likely go again next year, definitely, to try to get that merch on a cheap deal. Everything was just like 10 bucks. Even like tumblers that were gigantic were probably more than like 40 or 50 bucks. Could definitely try to resell them, but I'm not all in that eBay crap. But I saw a lot of people just buy a lot of those too, just 4 or 5 at a time. So it's pretty crazy to see. But definitely check it out if you're in the process, or even in any other college whenever they have it too. I know Duke had one as well today, but I'll get into that in a separate video. Thanks for watching, people. Like and subscribe. Comment down below. Let me know what y'all think. Have a great rest of your day. Bye. Fight on.